Why can I understand English but still struggle to speak it? You've watched hundreds of videos, memorized long vocabulary lists, maybe even passed some exams. But when it's time to open your mouth to speak, to connect, to share your thoughts, your mind goes blank, your heart beats faster, and the words just don't come out. If that's ever happened to you, you're not alone. And more importantly, it's not your fault. Welcome to Jackson English Stories, the place where we don't just study English, we live it through stories, emotions, and real experiences. In the next 60 minutes, you won't just learn tips. You'll hear real stories of people who once felt just like you and who found a way forward. We're going to explore why you freeze when it's time to speak, what your fear is really trying to protect, and how to build a speaking habit that feels safe, honest, and lasting. You'll learn how to think in English, speak without overthinking, and build a real environment for fluency right where you are. So take a deep breath, grab your notebook or just your courage, because this isn't just another English lesson. This is the beginning of your breakthrough. Let's begin. I want to start with a story because sometimes a story tells the truth better than any theory. A few years ago, I met a woman named Aisha. She was from Egypt, smart, kind, determined. She had studied English for over 10 years, passed the IELTS exam with a high score, read books, watched shows, even wrote short essays for fun. But when she moved to the US and someone at the grocery store asked, "Paper or plastic?" she froze. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. Later, over coffee, she told me, "It's like, I understand everything, but when it's my turn to speak, my brain just stops." And then she looked down and said, "I feel like I'm living in English, but I don't belong in it." That sentence stayed with me. Because it's not just Aisha. It's millions of learners, maybe even you, who feel trapped between understanding and expression. So why does this happen? The answer is simple but deep. Because understanding English is passive. Speaking English is active. When you listen or read, you have time. You can guess the meaning, rely on context, and stay in your comfort zone. But speaking, it's real time. It's pressure. It's personal. And if you've only trained your brain to recognize English but never to use it, you'll always feel stuck. Here's the lesson. Knowing English in your head is not the same as owning it in your mouth. You can memorize thousands of words, but fluency only comes when you turn knowledge into motion. And don't worry, we'll talk about exactly how to do that. But first, we need to look at something even deeper. Because before your mouth can speak English freely, your heart has to feel safe. Let's talk about the fear that hides behind silence. Let me tell you about Sophia. She was from Brazil, cheerful and bright, with a sparkle in her eyes every time she laughed. Her English was good, actually, more than good. She understood movies without subtitles. She could read news articles, even write thoughtful messages in English. But in class, she barely spoke. I asked her one evening gently, "Why don't you speak more? You have so much to say." She paused, looked down, and whispered something that broke my heart. "Because I don't want people to think I'm stupid." And just like that, I realized Sophia didn't have a language problem. She had a shame problem. And maybe so do many of us. You see, the real enemy isn't your grammar. It isn't your accent or vocabulary. It's the fear of being judged. The fear of getting it wrong, the fear of hearing someone laugh or seeing their confused face when you speak. That fear doesn't live in your mouth, it lives in your chest, and it's heavy. Here's the truth I want you to hear today. Fear doesn't mean you're weak, it means you care. You care about being understood, you care about connecting, and most of all, you care about not being seen as less than you are. But we can't let that fear drive the car, because the more you stay silent, the more powerful the fear becomes. Speaking a new language is like standing on stage without a script. You feel exposed, but the only way to get stronger is to keep stepping into that light. So here's a small lesson, but an important one. Fluency isn't the absence of fear. It's the courage to speak, even when fear is still there. Even native speakers feel nervous sometimes. Even teachers make mistakes. The difference is, they speak anyway. And that's what we're going to do next. Because now that we've faced the fear, it's time to let go of perfection. Let me show you why perfect English isn't the goal and never was. Haruto was one of the most disciplined students I ever met. He was from Japan, soft-spoken and always prepared. His grammar notebook was a work of art, color-coded, filled with timelines, definitions, and example sentences. He could explain the difference between the present perfect and the past perfect continuous better than most teachers I know. But one day, during a casual group activity, someone asked him, "What did you do over the weekend?" And he froze. His hands fidgeted, his eyes dropped. He didn't say a word. Later, I asked him what happened. He sighed and said, "I was still thinking about which tense was right, and then the moment passed." Haruto's story isn't unique. In fact, I hear versions of it all the time. We wait, we hesitate, we double-check every sentence in our heads, and while we're busy trying to be perfect, life moves on without us. So let's be honest. Grammar matters, but not in the way we think. It's not the starting point. It's the seasoning, not the meal. The purpose of grammar is to help us be clearer, not quieter. Here's the lesson. Don't wait to speak perfectly. Speak to get better. Because the truth is, no one learns to swim by reading a manual. You have to get in the water. You have to splash around. You have to mess up. And slowly, your body learns, your brain adapts, you get stronger. So instead of memorizing another grammar rule today, I want you to say this sentence out loud. I am learning English. I don't have to be perfect to speak. Say it again. Let your mouth get used to that truth, because when you stop chasing perfection, you start creating progress. Now, let's talk about something a lot of learners secretly worry about. Their accent. Do you really need to sound like an American or a Brit to be a good English speaker? Let's find out together. Kofi was from Ghana. He had spoken English his whole life. It was one of the official languages of his country. He was confident, friendly, and always had something thoughtful to say. But when he moved to Canada, something strange happened. After a meeting at work, a colleague turned to him and said, "You speak English, but you have an accent." Kofi smiled politely and replied, "Yes, I do. So do you." And in that moment, something shifted for both of them. Because the truth is, everyone has an accent. Even Americans, even Brits. Even two people from the same city might sound different. An accent doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're human. It's a reflection of where you come from, of the life you've lived, of the languages your tongue has danced with before English ever arrived. But I know the pressure many learners feel. Maybe someone laughed at your pronunciation. Maybe you feel like your voice isn't enough in English. Maybe, deep down, you've told yourself, "I'll speak more when I sound like them." But let me tell you something important. Your goal is not to erase your voice. Your goal is to be understood. Clarity matters more than imitation. And sounding like yourself with confidence is far more powerful than trying to copy someone else. Anna, one of my students from Italy, once told me, I used to feel embarrassed about my accent until I realized that people don't care how I speak. They care about what I'm saying. That moment was her turning point. She stopped hiding, and her English started to shine. So here's your lesson today. Speak clearly. Speak with heart. Speak like you. That's more than enough. And once you start trusting your voice just as it is, you're ready to use it in the moment. No overthinking, no long pauses, just real simple speech. Let's talk about a small but powerful habit that can change everything. The 3-second rule. Min was from Vietnam. Quiet, thoughtful, and kind. He understood English very well. He could follow group discussions, laugh at jokes, even take notes in meetings. But when someone asked him a question, there would always be a pause. 5 seconds. 10. Sometimes longer. It wasn't because he didn't know the answer. He didn't trust himself to say it right. He was translating, rephrasing, rechecking grammar in his head. And by the time he was ready to speak, the moment was gone. The conversation had already moved on. One day, I gave Min a challenge. I said, next time someone asks you something, don't wait. Just answer within 3 seconds. Even if it's messy, even if it's wrong, just speak. He looked nervous, but he tried. The first time he said, I go shop yesterday. He laughed. Wrong grammar. But I smiled and told him, you spoke. That's what matters. And that was the beginning. By the end of the week, Min was answering faster. By the end of the month, he was even making jokes in English. So what changed? He stopped overthinking. Here's the lesson. The longer you wait, the louder your fear becomes. But the faster you speak, the faster you grow. The 3-second rule is simple but powerful. When someone speaks to you, respond within 3 seconds. Don't aim for perfect, aim for presence. Aim for staying in the conversation. Because most people don't notice your little mistakes. They notice your energy, your willingness to connect. And fluency doesn't come from thinking more. It comes from speaking more. So next time someone asks you, what did you eat today? Don't freeze. Just say, I had noodles, rice and chicken, just a sandwich. That's it. That's fluency in motion. Now that you've taken the first step to speak without fear, let's make your practice even more powerful by using one of the most effective tools language learners have, even when they're all alone. Let's talk about shadowing. I once had a student named Anna from Poland. She lived in a small town where no one spoke English, no language classes, no native speakers, no conversation partners. I feel stuck, she told me. How can I practice speaking if I have no one to talk to? And that's when I introduced her to a method that completely changed her journey. Shadowing. Shadowing is simple. You listen to a sentence in English and then immediately repeat it out loud, trying to match the speaker's rhythm, tone, and pronunciation like an actor reading a script. You're not just repeating words. You're training your mouth to move in English. Anna started small. She picked a short podcast, just 5 minutes a day. She paused after every sentence and repeated what she heard. At first, it felt awkward. She stumbled over certain words. She even laughed at herself. But she kept going, day after day, and after just a few weeks, her voice changed. Her speech became smoother. Her confidence grew for the first time. She told me, I sounded like someone who speaks English, not just someone who learns it. Here's why this works. Your brain learns best through imitation. It's how babies learn. It's how actors train. And it's how you can start speaking naturally without needing a classroom or a conversation partner. And there's more. Shadowing also helps your listening skills. your intonation, and your memory. It's one of the few techniques that activates both sides of your brain, input and output at the same time. So here's your small challenge. Find a short clip today, a podcast, a YouTube video, a scene from your favorite movie. Pause after each sentence. Repeat it out loud. Don't worry if it's not perfect. Focus on the rhythm, the flow, the music of the language. And if you can't find a clip right away, just talk to yourself. Yes, talk to yourself out loud, in the mirror, in the shower, while cooking. Because your voice is a muscle, and it needs daily use. Anna didn't wait for perfect conditions. She made progress in her tiny kitchen with nothing but a phone and a voice recorder. And you can do the same. Now, you might be wondering, how do I really make English feel natural so I don't have to translate every sentence in my head? That's what we're going to talk about next. Let's learn how to think in English. Elif was from Turkey. She was smart, quick-witted, and full of ideas in her own language. But every time she tried to speak English, something slowed her down. In my head, I'm still speaking Turkish, she said. I translate every sentence before I speak, and it's exhausting. That feeling? It's more common than you think. Most learners go through it, because for years, we've been taught English like a subject, not a language. We learn it in books, through rules and tests, but no one teaches us how to think in it. Here's the truth. Translating in your head is like driving with the brakes on. You can move forward, but it's slow, clunky, and stressful. So I gave Elif a small experiment. For 1 week, I told her, don't focus on speaking more. Just change how you think. Here's what she did. Day 1, she looked around and named everything in English. Chair, window, pen, coffee. Day 2, she made short mental sentences. I'm walking. It's raining. I feel tired. Day 3 to 7, she reflected in English her plans, her feelings, her day. Simple, honest thoughts, no grammar rules, no pressure. By the end of the week, something shifted. She told me. I said a full sentence in English, and I didn't even notice I skipped the Turkish part. That's when I smiled, because that's real fluency, not perfect words, but natural ones. Here's your small lesson today. The language you speak most confidently is the one you think in. So start small. When you see something, name it. When you do something, describe it. At night, replay your day in English like a quiet diary in your mind. You don't need to speak out loud. Just think, and think often. Because fluency doesn't start on your tongue. It starts in your thoughts. And once your brain begins to live in English, you'll start noticing something magical. English stops feeling foreign and starts feeling like home. Now that you're building this inner world of English, it's time to create something just as powerful on the outside. Let's build your English environment, even if you don't live in an English-speaking country. Maria lived in a small town in Argentina. She had a big dream to work for an international company, but there was one challenge. No one around her spoke English. No classes, no clubs, no native speakers. I feel so far away from English, she told me once. It's like I'm trying to grow a tree in the desert. But what Maria didn't realize was that she didn't need to move countries to learn faster. She just needed to change her environment. So we created what I call an English ecosystem, a little world around her, made of small choices that kept English close all day. It's based on the 3S method: surround, soak, speak. 1. Surround. Maria changed her phone's language to English. She labeled items in her house mirror, fridge, window. She followed English-speaking creators on Instagram and YouTube. Even her grocery list, written in English. Everywhere she looked, English was there. 2. Soak. She started listening to English while doing simple tasks, washing dishes, folding clothes, walking to the store. Not intense study time, just background exposure. Music, podcasts, short news clips. Her brain began to soak in the rhythm, vocabulary, and tone of the language. 3. Speak. And this is where the magic happens. Maria began talking to herself while cooking. I'm cutting tomatoes. Where's the salt? She read out loud while drinking tea. Even her morning mirror routine started with Good morning, Maria. Let's have a great day. Within 3 months, she didn't just sound better. She felt different. English wasn't something she visited. It was something she lived in. Here's the lesson. Don't wait for English to come to you. Invite it into your daily life, one small habit at a time. Because the more your brain sees, hears, and touches English, the more natural it becomes. You don't need a plane ticket. You need a plan. And now that you're surrounding yourself with English, let's talk about one of the most personal and powerful ways to practice it. By speaking to the one person who's always with you, yourself. Let's explore the mirror method. Marco was 42 years old when he decided to take English seriously. He lived in Italy, worked full-time, and felt like he had missed his chance. I don't have anyone to practice with, he said, and I feel silly talking to myself. But I asked him one question. If you wait for someone else to help you speak, how long will you wait? That's when I introduced him to the mirror method, a simple but powerful way to practice speaking, even when you're completely alone. Here's how it works. Every morning, Marco stood in front of his bathroom mirror. He looked himself in the eye, not just as a learner, but as a speaker. And he spoke. Nothing long, nothing fancy, just honest, simple sentences. Good morning, I feel tired today. I have a meeting at 9. I hope today is a good day. At first, he laughed at himself. I sounded like a robot, he said. But after a week, something changed. He stopped judging, he started flowing, and slowly. His confidence grew not just in English, but in himself. Why does this work? Because when you speak to yourself out loud, you train your mouth to form English sounds. You become comfortable hearing your own voice in English. And most importantly, you practice without pressure. There's no fear of judgment, no fear of mistakes. It's just you and your words. And that's where transformation begins. Here's your lesson today. If you want to feel natural in English, first, be natural with yourself. Try it tomorrow morning. Look at yourself in the mirror. Say, hi, my name is Gore. Say how you feel, what you'll do, what you're grateful for. It's 5 minutes, but it's 5 minutes that can change your voice and your mindset. And once you start speaking to yourself daily, something beautiful happens. You stop waiting for practice. You start creating it. But let's take it a step further. Because yes, speaking alone is powerful, but speaking with someone makes it even better. Let's talk about how to have real conversations, even if you don't live in an English-speaking country. John was an engineer from the Philippines. Smart, capable, and fluent on paper. He could write emails, read technical documents, and understand meetings. But when it came to small talk, he panicked. I can talk about machines, he said, but not about the weather. The real issue? He had no one to practice real-life conversations with. No English-speaking friends. No time for classes. But here's what we discovered together. You don't need a native speaker to practice real conversations. You just need a little creativity and consistency. We started small. Each day, John practiced one simple dialogue out loud by himself. Ordering coffee, asking for directions, talking about his weekend. He played both roles. Yes, it felt a little silly at first, but it worked. Then we added more tools. Language exchange apps like HelloTalk, Tandem, or Speaky online groups on Facebook or Reddit, where learners practiced short dialogues, AI chatbots, and speaking exercises on language learning platforms. And once a week, he recorded a voice message to a language partner. No pressure, just practice. Within a few months, John didn't just sound better. He felt ready. One day, after a company meeting, a colleague joked, "Looks like we'll need coffee after this one." And without thinking, John smiled and replied, "Make it strong and sweet like my Friday." Everyone laughed and he realized, I'm no longer thinking about speaking. I'm just speaking. Here's the takeaway. Conversation is not something you wait for. It's something you rehearse until it feels real. So even if you're alone today, you can still practice real situations out loud. Role-play both sides of a dialogue, record yourself and listen back, or find one person online who's also learning just like you. Don't underestimate small talks. Hi, how's it going? What did you do today? These are the bricks that build fluency. And now that you know how to practice speaking both alone and with others, let's unlock something just as powerful. The connection between how well you listen and how easily you speak. Let's dive into that next. Emma was from Poland. She had never traveled abroad. She didn't have any native English-speaking friends. But her pronunciation? Natural. Her rhythm? Smooth. Her speaking? Confident and calm. One day, I asked her, "How did you learn to speak like that?" And she smiled and said, "I listen. A lot." You see, most people think speaking is all about speaking. But that's only half the truth. Listening is the secret door to fluent speaking. Why? Because the more you hear real English, the more your brain absorbs the sound of the language, not just the words, but the melody, the emotion, the natural flow. Think of babies. They listen for months long before they ever say a word. And when they finally speak, they already sound like a native. Why? Because they've been soaking in the music of the language. Emma's method was simple. She listened to English podcasts every morning while getting ready for work. She watched YouTube videos during lunch. She played her favorite English songs in the car, not once a week, every single day. And she didn't just listen, she repeated. She would pause, shadow a sentence, rewind, and try again. Even just 5 minutes a day. Over time, those sentences became part of her voice. Here's your lesson. If you want to speak like a native, listen like a learner. Choose a voice you enjoy. Watch or listen to something short. Pause after each sentence and repeat it just like shadowing. Don't worry about understanding every word. Focus on feeling the flow. Listening helps you build better pronunciation, better vocabulary, better reflexes when you speak. And best of all, it takes the pressure off. You can listen while walking, cooking, or relaxing. No stress, just quiet, consistent progress. And now that your ears are working with your mouth, it's time to focus on something every speaker needs. The right words at the right time. Let's talk about how to grow your vocabulary the smart way. Rosa was from Colombia, and she had a notebook full of English words, hundreds of them, neatly written, beautifully organized, each with a translation and a definition. But one day, after struggling to express herself in a simple conversation, she looked at me and said, "I know so many words, but I can't use them." And she's not alone. A lot of learners fall into the same trap. They collect words, but never connect with them. Here's the problem. When you memorize long lists of vocabulary without context, your brain doesn't know where to put them. It's like throwing clothes into a suitcase without folding them. Everything's there, but you can't find what you need when it matters. So we made a change. Instead of learning 20 words a day, Rosa learned 3 words a day but deeply. For each word, she did 3 things. 1. Said it out loud. Delicious. 2. Used it in a real sentence. This cake is delicious. 3. Linked it to her life. She imagined herself eating her favorite food and said, delicious. Within a week, those words were no longer just definitions on paper. They were alive, ready to use. Here's the lesson. You don't need more words. You need more real moments with the words you already know. So how can you make vocabulary stick? Learn in context. Instead of banana, say, I eat a banana every morning. Practice out loud. Your brain learns faster when your mouth joins in. Group words by theme, food, family, feelings, not by alphabet. Reuse them. Talk about your day using yesterday's words. Repetition equals memory. And don't forget to have fun with it. Play word games. Sing songs. Watch shows with subtitles. Every word you hear in a real situation becomes easier to remember than 10 you only see in a notebook. Rosa later told me I stopped being afraid of forgetting words because I started using them like friends. And now that you're growing your vocabulary with real-life power, let's talk about something even more important than memory. Momentum. Because without a system, even the best habits can fade. Let's learn how to build a routine that fits your life and keeps you going. Natalia was a nurse from Brazil. She worked long hours at the hospital, night shifts, early mornings, barely any time for herself. She didn't have the luxury of English classes or long study sessions. But 6 months after we met, she was having full conversations with patients and even translating for new staff. Not because she had more time, not because she was more talented, but because she had something far more powerful. A system. You see, a lot of learners have dreams. I want to speak fluently. I want to understand movies. I want to travel and talk to anyone. But dreams without structure often fade. Life gets busy, motivation disappears, and then 1 week without practice becomes 1 month, then 1 year. That's why I tell my students, fluency doesn't come from motivation, it comes from momentum. Here's the routine Natalia followed: simple, flexible, and doable, even on her hardest days. Morning, listen to an English podcast during her 15-minute commute. Afternoon break, speak 3 sentences out loud about how she felt that day. Evening, watch 1 short video and write down 1 new word. That's it. No pressure. No perfection. Just small actions, repeated daily. And that's the magic. Because when you build a system that fits your life, English becomes part of your day, not something extra you're trying to squeeze in. Here's your small lesson today. Don't wait for the perfect time to study. Create a rhythm that works even when life gets messy. You can design your own simple routine. Morning, name 3 things you see in English. Lunch break, listen to 5 minutes of English audio. Evening, say 1 sentence out loud, plus review 1 new word. Your system doesn't have to be big, it just has to be yours. Because fluency isn't a finish line, it's a habit. And now that you've built a system that works for you, there's just one thing left, the most important reminder of all. Not about grammar, not about vocabulary, but about your voice and why it deserves to be heard. Let's talk about that together. Jorge was from Peru. For months, he watched English videos in silence. He took notes, repeated a few words under his breath, and told himself, I'll speak when I'm ready. But one day, something changed. He paused a video, looked at the screen, and whispered to himself, I am learning English. I am not afraid. He wrote that sentence on a sticky note, put it on his wall, and said it every morning before work. It was just one sentence, just a moment, but it changed everything. Because here's the truth. You don't need perfect English to be worthy of speaking. You already are. So many learners wait until their accent is gone, until they stop making mistakes, until their grammar is perfect. But guess what? That day never comes. And in the waiting, they miss the most important part, the connection. People don't remember your grammar. They remember your warmth, your courage, your willingness to try. I've met speakers with perfect English who say nothing of value, and I've met learners with broken sentences but who speak with honesty, humor, and heart. So here's your reminder today. Your voice matters, not when it's perfect, but because it's yours. Speak with mistakes, speak with an accent, speak with pauses, but speak. Speak because you have stories to share. Speak because someone out there needs to hear what you have to say. And if you ever feel like giving up, come back to this. A language is not a test. It's a bridge, and you are already walking across it. Now, before we end this journey together, let's take one more moment to reflect, to commit, and to take that very first step out loud. Let's finish together. So here we are. You've just spent the last hour walking through one of the most personal, powerful, and challenging journeys a learner can take, the journey of finding your voice in a new language. Not just studying it, not just listening to tips, but feeling it. Facing your fears, letting go of perfection, and choosing again and again to keep going. I want you to pause for a moment, take a breath, and look at how far you've come. Because today wasn't just about English, it was about something deeper. It was about you. Your resilience, your willingness to try, your quiet belief that maybe, just maybe, you can do this. And you can, not by doing everything at once, but by doing one small thing today. So before this video ends, I want to invite you to make a promise to yourself. Not a big one, just a real one. In the comments below, finish this sentence. Today I will practice my English by. That's it. It could be, I'll speak to myself for 5 minutes. I'll listen to a podcast while I cook. I'll learn 3 new words and use them in a sentence. Because when you say it out loud or write it down, you give that action life. And when others see it, you're not just helping yourself, you're reminding someone else that they're not alone. And if this video helped you feel even just a little more brave, a little more hopeful, a little more ready, then don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need that same little spark. Because here at Jackson English Stories, we don't just learn a language, we grow through it together. So thank you for listening, for showing up, for choosing to believe in your voice, even with mistakes, even with fear. This isn't the end, it's your beginning. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, keep speaking, keep dreaming, and keep becoming. One word at a time.